one of my friends because they wanted me to bring them a magnet. And I ended up picking one and making my way to the gate just in time for boarding to start. So everything was going super smooth. I felt like I was on perfect timing and had like great luck. And it like continued that way all the way from San Jose, all the way from San Jose, all the way back to the US until literally 10 minutes before we were about to land. The crew started saying we weren't going to be able to land in Charlotte, which is where my connecting flight is, and where I am right now. We weren't going to be able to land in Charlotte because a storm had suddenly come in. And a few minutes ago, I had seen looking out the window, in some clouds, there were these like bursts of like bright, like orange light. And they did look very beautiful. And I was thinking, like, is that lightning or isn't it? Because it looked, I thought it might be the sunset like peeking through because it looked so like golden. And when I think of lightning, I think of it like cold white, like plasma type of fluorescence. You know what I mean? So I was being very positive about the experience. I was like, oh, this is an adventure. Because basically, what they were saying is they were going to scooch the plane to Atlanta and then just come right back, and it would be like an hour. And everyone else on the plane who has been on planes before immediately started freaking out. And I was like, oh, this is so funny. This is. I'm laughing, but I'm crying. I was so young then, I didn't know. Literally, actually crying. So while all the people around me were like trying to message people and like cussing, I was vibing. At first, they were saying it was because of the weather. And then they were saying, well, in Charlotte, we can't do customs anyway. They're closing. So we're going to go to Atlanta. We're going to go through customs and we're just going to get right back on the same uh, plane. And we're going to fly right back. And it's going to be an hour. And then everyone can get their connecting flights. And all the flights that were connecting were being delayed anyway because, you know, the weather's not just affecting one plane, it's everyone who's in the sky. We get to Atlanta, we go through customs, and then they're like, okay, go through TSA and go through the gate. And that's where I had my first negative experience with TSA. And like, it actually enraged me. So I was mobbing, angry, through the entire airport to get to this mysterious gate. Uh, I'd never been to in Atlanta, and by this time it was like 9 o'clock, maybe like 9:30, and we had been held on the plane for a while, and I was vibing. Everyone else was mad, but now I'm mad. So I was mobbing through the airport. Finally get to the gate, and then I'm low key chilling again. But then we waited at the gate for like hours. And people kept trying to go up and ask questions, but whoever was at the gate was basically saying, like, we're not here for you. We had been able to be directed through the airport by a bunch of people, sort of. I got lost, but I found my way. Um, and they were saying an agent's going to come to help you guys. An agent's going to come and help you. They're coming, they're on their way. And then nobody came for hours. When someone finally did come, it was because one of the other passengers had just gone looking for anyone and found this person. And they came over and they were just like, I have no information. I'm trying to find some because I don't know why any of you are here. It was just something they felt like a responsibility to do, but it wasn't their responsibility. So that agent told us to exit the gate and go out to the like customer service desks at the front, like where you would check in. And at that point it was after midnight, and we were supposed to land at like 8:45 in Charlotte, and now we're in Atlanta. They were saying go exit, go to the front, line up, and you'll get like meal and accommodation vouchers. So everyone like runs again, like outside, and the like check-in area is empty. There's no like employees there, and there's like 200 people who just came off of a plane with all their luggage there, and no one can go back inside the gate without going back through security. So everyone just like lines up, and it was horrendous. It was it was torture. At least at the gate, like we could be sitting. The line was very like my whole body hurts, and I was just like slowly scooting for a couple more hours, and there were a few people who were just losing it, which like valid, but the aura around the airport was beginning to feel unhinged. Everyone was very cranky, and people were just like having outbursts that were just creating like a terroir of this is bad. Eventually one employee came out, and then a second person, the woman who had sent us outside to the check-in, came out also to try to figure some stuff out. It was going very slowly. Like people were saying, to check everyone in would probably take like 5 or 6 hours. It was close enough to 3 a.m. that I was like, well, people are going to start coming in for regular check-in stuff. So I just need to get some information. So I'm going to stay in line for information. People were trying to like move their flights and like leave to go to hotels and stuff. But I have a long weekend for work. It wasn't ideal for me to be there, but I could be there. And at some point in all this, I think at the gate actually, my flight connecting back home was canceled. So I was just like, yeah, it was canceled. And then I had to rebook something. I waited a little bit to rebook. So I ended up having to pick a September 1st flight, which is how I ended up here. Uh, Instead of at home, I, I ejected it from my mind. I was just like, I just need information. I just need to know what's going on. Um, where where I started to break, I at that point I was mostly exhausted. But where things really felt desperate for me was I got like closest to the beginning of the line, and then because people were coming in for their regular morning flights that were scheduled out of Atlanta, someone came and moved the line all to one side. So everyone was out of order in line, and people were like jumping ahead or like being pushed back. So I was kind of like, I wormed in where I could fit in, and I was kind of like, well, what did I wait all this time for? And everyone was really feeling that and like really pissed off. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to find a different flight and I need to get home. Because also, I was supposed to get home in time to see my youngest sister before she went back to school for the year. Now I'm not going to get to, which is unfortunate. I'm going to have to um, mail the things I got for her. But anyway, I was like, okay, I really need to get back home Saturday. So I was looking on like Google Flights or whatever, and I found a flight that was going to it was going to make what should have been kind of like a 3 or 4 hour trip into an 8 hour trip, because instead of going from Atlanta directly to Boston, it would be going from Atlanta to Houston, and then with like a 2 hour layover, then to Boston or something like that. But I still would have got home Saturday night. And I was like, fine. I'll abandon ship on my rebooked flight. Um, so I tried to book it, and it wasn't recognizing my name as valid, which has happened to me before. So I tried it a few different ways to just see what the system would accept. And I got errors 3 times for all of them. So I was like, all right, I give up. But then I got a PayPal notification that it supposedly went through. And I clicked it and I saw it had charged 3 times. So I was like, oh no. I was trying to buy a non refundable ticket. And that was a lot of money. So I jumped out of the line I was in to go over to the other airline to tell them, hey, don't let these payments go through. Um, and in just like panic attack mode, I ended up making the process way longer for myself, because I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong line. And I tried to go to the baggage checking line, and I was like, oh, this is wrong. And I went back to the place I was originally at, and I had lost my spot in line. Not by that much, literally like 3 people, but it was significant to me because I'm like, we're on a clock for me not to be charged $1,000. I get to the front of that line and I'm like, hey, cancel everything. And the agent there is like, I can't do that. You just like call them. The customer service line, well, first, I got back in the 5 miles long line for my original flight. And this time I had to go to the end, which sucked because I was still kind of near the front when I ditched. I was just like panicking. I don't know. I should have just got my boarding pass, because I think people who chilled out, at least at the front, they were able to get some stuff. Um, but whatever. So back to suffering. The the Kafkaesque torture I was going through at this point was, those robot answering services for companies where they say, describe in a few words what your issue is. I never know what to say, and they can never recognize my voice. And this one in particular was just glitching. Like, there were like full minutes of silence in between me trying to say something, or the like robo host would be listing options or making like suggestions, and it would just like pause and then pick up like at a random point in the script. It was very weird and frustrating because I don't like those. I would rather just press numbers. I think it's much easier than having to speak and use these like hyper specific like keyword phrases that I don't know because I'm not a part of like the company branding, or like this like corporate business language. I'm not even a previous customer for this company. I don't know any of what's going on. So I was pissed off. But I finally was able to talk to someone, and I was like, hey, don't charge my card, please. Luckily, they said it was actually a glitch with PayPal where it shows that it's being charged, or it does a temporary hold, but it will reverse after a certain amount of time, which was good. but they were trying to get it like just wiped for me in the moment so I didn't have to worry about it. And I don't know if it was me or it was them, but the call disconnected. And I was like, wow, my suffering continues. I called back. I was in robot menu hell again. And then I was also in line where there were people who were there overnight. At this point, it's like, I don't think it was 5 a.m. yet. I do manage to get someone on the phone. I explained what happened again. And this person was like, okay, find me the transaction numbers. I can delete these or tell PayPal just void them immediately so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, bet. However, I'm in an airport that is like jammed full of people. So it's noise all around me on all sides. Um, I think I had my headphones in, but I don't really know if these headphones have a microphone. I feel like I can hear a difference when I record with them, but I don't know what it sounds like to other people on the phone. And I don't know if I should be holding the phone to my face or if I should just be talking and my headphones should pick it up. But whatever it was, the sound quality on my end was pretty bad. Hers was okay, but not great. So I'm reading numbers and letters as like slowly as I can. And then the other thing is I have to give my personal information, like my full name, which it's just my full name. That's fine. But it feels weird to be standing in like a crowd of strangers and just like spelling out my name and my email address and my phone number and stuff like that. No likey. But then back to the transaction numbers. So I'm reading these letters and numbers and it's cutting out on her end. So I'll read a sequence of like four or five letters and numbers at a time. And she's like, you're gonna need to do the letters phonetically because I can't hear you well enough. Fair. However, that means I don't know the phonetic alphabet. I'm just a girl. I don't have a talking on the phone job like a customer service. I actually barely get emails. So I don't know the phonetic alphabet. So every letter I come to, I have to, off the top of my head, think of a word. And I'm also like, I can't be weird. So I'm just like, okay, names. And then I hit like Y, and I'm like, it's the letter Y. And then she reads the sequence back to me, and I have to every like 2 or 3 digits correct something, and I can't just say like, oh, there's a 1 before the 2. It's like before the 234 JA7 whatever. It's 1 2 3 4 JA7. So it takes a long time just to get through the first one. And then she's like, okay, okay, on to number 2. And I'm like, can I email this to you, please? Not an option. And she's very sorry about it, which I appreciate because I was also very sorry about it. As we did them, we got better. Teamwork makes the dream work. So I really appreciate her. Shout out to you. Could not hear her name. I got that taken care of. She was like, do you want me to reserve this flight for you? I was like, no. The universe told me don't take this flight. So I stayed in my line, prepared to continue suffering. So I got like a notification or a text that I'd been confirmed for a flight from Atlanta to Charlotte. So I was like, oh, okay, new flight. if I have a boarding pass, I can just check in and go. In the app, it won't let me check in. At the kiosk, it does not recognize that the flight exists. I have to get I have to get someone to come and help me, and she's just like, you have to stand back in the line. And I must admit, I just scooched into the line. I cut a bunch of people. I was not going back to the front of, I was not going back to the end of the line. I'm sorry to everyone. But it turned out fine because a few steps down, someone was just like, if you were from the flight that was here overnight, just come this way and go. And I was like, I don't have a boarding pass. It won't let me check in. She said, it doesn't matter. Same security, go. I go to the next person. I thought we were just going to be able to go through without doing security, but the next person was directing to get into the TSA line. So I was like, "Hey, I don't have a boarding pass," but they said I could go. Um, that person told me, "No, you need to get a paper boarding pass," and I just looked back at the line, and I was thinking about going, but I was like, I can't do that. So I just turned back to them, and I'm like, she said I don't need one. So this next woman was just like, okay, just go. So I get in the line. I have because none of my stuff was working. Anytime I opened the app or like was able to look at anything like previous or like future, any boarding pass, any like flight number, anything that I could see, I was screenshotting it. So I was like, okay, I have my screenshot from my last flight that proves I was here overnight. So maybe I can show them that. I was stressing the entire time. Um, but they let everyone who was in the line at that point from before go to priority. Some people got in trouble because they were coming in from the other room and just like skipping the line, and they were not supposed to do that. But I was all good. But I was stressing because I was like, I don't have my boarding pass. And then I get up to the front, and suddenly I just see mobile boarding pass. I click it, it's the one from the last night. And I was like, okay, I scanned it, it worked. I got through. I I go through security for the third time. This time my uh my personal item bag got pulled off off the x-ray. So I got my suitcase and my laptop and stuff. And when I was leaving from Boston, they didn't have I don't recall them having me take my laptop out of my suitcase. So in coming back, everywhere made me take my laptop out, which was okay. It was just that my laptop was really the cornerstone of my Tetris of packing. So when I took it out, everything collapsed and became like kind of a mess. So I I have to really like cram it back in. I can't like quickly get my stuff together. And then my bag is behind this barrier, and I'm like, that's my bag. Uh, they have me come over, to the window or whatever, and I physically cannot process the words this person is saying to me, who's about to inspect my luggage, and I let them see me sweating because I kept saying like, what are you saying? But like I let the sadness come out in my voice to let them know I wasn't being defiant. I was just depressed. Um, but they were, do you have anything sharp? And I was like, oh no. But in my mind, I was like, do I? You know how like just like panic thoughts. I was like, oh my god, do I? Am I gonna get in trouble? What's gonna happen? Um, but they just dug around in my bag a little bit more, and it was fine. It was just like stressful. Then we were sent to another terminal. It was, people were telling us where to go and what to do, but nobody super knew the answer. So sometimes it was just like con- confusing information. Um, but I think it showed up in one of the boarding passes. And by this time, my phone was also, the battery was dying. It was like 30%. So I was like, okay, I need to write down my flight number and my gate number, but my journal and my pen were in my um, overhead carry on, the like suitcase. And the way I had packed it, the way I had jammed everything in there to make room in my personal bag luggage for me to buy a bottle, which I didn't end up buying, meant that if I opened that suitcase, it was just going to be too much for me personally to be able to handle putting everything back together again. So I was like, oh, I can't. I can't do this. I I knew somewhere in my carry-on I had a pen, and I had my wallet which had like receipts or whatever. But I couldn't focus on making that task happen. I was just like, I need to get to the gate that they're sending me to, and then I'll figure it out. I get there. I I'm trying all the plugs to charge my phone, and they're all disconnected. Eventually, I found like a little corner I could plug my phone into, and by 5 a.m., I was sitting on the floor of the airport, having not slept all night, and realized it had been like 24 hours since I woke up to get on my flights from Costa Rica to Boston. And I had been like so excited to like go and like get home and like show everyone all of like the stuff I had and the things I did, and to meet my friend who was coming back from the airport and like give her the gifts that I got for her. And that all was just like not happening, and I kept like thinking about how we were 10 minutes from landing and then suddenly this disaster of a day happened. And I had been suppressing tears, but I was like, okay. And at the same time, I was like, it's a new day. I have to do my morning pages. So I was like, I was writing in my journal, and I was like, okay. And my official journal, and the one I want to keep everything consolidated in, was in my suitcase. So I took out a different journal that Halise had given everyone in the group, which was great luck because she also gave me a pen, and it was in the like spiral binding of the journal. So at least I had something to write, to write in, so I could feel like I was accomplishing the not feel like, so I could actually accomplish the task that I was set out to do. Um, so I was writing, and I was like, okay, I'll let myself cry a little bit. And at first, I was like, not crying that much. And I was like, okay, well, if that's all there's gonna be, maybe later. Then I started ugly crying and sobbing on the airport floor, and I could not control myself. But also, I was very self conscious because I didn't want people to like talk to me about it or see me. So I was kind of like hunching over so that people couldn't see my face. But I was just like, had grabbed some like napkins from a random restaurant, and I I was crying so uncontrollably. I was just like going through all of them, and I was like, well, I needed these because my nose is stuffy. I can't blow my nose. If I run out of napkins, I have to stop crying. Yeah, I was just trying to contain myself from like wailing because I didn't want to attract attention, and I was also feeling like, oh, there's so many like little kids and babies in this airport who aren't crying, which like I I don't need to compare myself and compete with babies and children in the airport. Um, but I felt like, oh, I feel so like dumb crying, but I just it was all getting to me. I was becoming unhinged. So I went in the bathroom and I was wiping my face and like washing my face, and there was this other girl in there who was trying to like brush her teeth, and we were just like in the way of each other because there was like there was a bigger bathroom that had like lots of sinks and lots of space and everything was stocked, but the one that I went into was smaller, and like one of the paper towel things wasn't working, and like some of the sinks were like iffy. Um, you know how sometimes the motion sensor is just like one of them works, one of them doesn't. So we were just in the way of each other and both like vulnerable in a way. I think me probably more than her. Um, but it was just mutually embarrassing. But I got my shit together a little bit, barely. And I found like by then more of the shops were opening up and my phone was close to charge. So I went to a little area that was surrounded by all sides by like restaurant kiosks, and there was a table with outlets. So I went and charged up my phone, and I had plugged in my portable charger, which I had been using, but it ran out of battery. So I plugged in all my stuff to charge. I um, I started listening to some music. Uh, just kept journaling to like have something to do because at the same time, I'll talk about it more in the artist way check-in. I'm doing this challenge or like task where I'm not supposed to be engaging in media or entertainment. Like social media, listening to podcasts, watching TV, reading books or the news. I'm not supposed to be doing that this week. Julia Cameron seems to think listening to music is not the same as reading books. So I was like, okay, I'll listen to music. I'll take what I can get. But by this time, I was thinking that I was going to transfer from Atlanta to Charlotte and then do the Charlotte to Boston transfer the same day. But because the flight to Charlotte was delayed again, the takeoff time and the landing time of the two of them overlapped. So I was thinking I'm going to miss my connection, even though actually my flight back home is tomorrow. So some part of me understood that and booked this hotel room that I'm in, but at 5 or 6 a.m., after crying for an hour on the airport floor, I thought I made a mistake and I booked a hotel for a night that I didn't need. But I kept saying, well, I'm going to miss my connection anyway. They're going to have to rebook it anyway. So if I can't get on that flight, it's good to have that room just in case. But I might lose out on the money that I spent on the room. And that was like, I was trying to calm myself down about that, but I was also stressed about that. So I just went and sat down somewhere and listened to music and like kept journaling until I was like, okay, I'm like calming down. And throughout this experience, I was in like the trip group chat, like telling everyone out like every few hours, I'm still in Atlanta. I'm still in Atlanta. And at a certain point, everyone else goes to sleep and it's just my messages. And I was doing this in a few group chats because like my mom was like, "Where are you?" Like, "What's the updates?" My friend who was supposed to be picking me up at the airport was tracking the flights and she was like, "This is crazy." Um, my dad didn't answer my texts, but my mom was probably talking to him. Um, I was in like a couple other chats with friends, just like who were just like, I was keeping everyone up to date on what's happening because if you put me in a group chat, I will just spam. Sorry, that's just the way that I am. Um, so I had been joking in the group chat that I was going through the stages of grief, and it didn't occur to me that that was true until after the crying. I was like, yeah, I really am in a grieving process right now. I've hit depression, next is acceptance. And I really did get there. Like, sitting in that little kiosk area, I was like, okay, I'm safe here. I was able to get a bunch more napkins from the businesses that were around. So I felt safe about having something to blow my nose with and to wipe my tears. But also by that point, because I was crying, I had like drained my sinuses a lot. So I was feeling pretty good. All my stuff was pretty charged up. So I gathered all my things and I went to the gate that we were supposed to be at. I I sat like in a seat and put on my eye mask. I was looking for some like calming sleep music to try to like wind down a little bit and drown out the airport noises. And I put on this Crystal Bowl and Gregorian chant 3 hour mix. And it really calmed me down, especially when I had my eye mask on. And I couldn't sleep all night because I was paranoid about like my luggage and stuff, but I just like laid on top of my luggage. So I felt secure enough that I don't think I fell deeply into sleep because I could still hear the people around me speaking to each other. But I like went into like a meditative zone and I really rested for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And at that point, I had had 3 hours to go from like leaving the kiosk to going to the gate. When I left the kiosk, I was like, oh, there's a couple hours left. Let me go to the gate. Um, so I slept for like an hour, slept for like an hour. And when I woke up, I looked at my flight information again. And I was like, oh, I am going to use that hotel room. Great. So I have a plan. And I just felt like very relaxed. I literally reached the stage of acceptance. And the next couple of hours, I was just chilling. And I noticed while I was sitting there that another plane was boarding from our gate, and their departure time was like 5 minutes before our boarding time, like 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, that's sus. But they're doing the boarding and they're doing like the last calls. And then our flight doesn't come up on the gate. And it's like that for a while. And I'm watching in my app the like time tick down, like 18 minutes to boarding, 17 minutes to boarding, like going lower and lower. And I'm just like, interesting. Okay. All right. The, the, I kept listening to the chanting for a while, but then more people from my flight were coming as the other flight had left. And There was someone who ran in after the last call to try to get on the plane. I think they got on. I wasn't paying too much attention, but I was still like, they can't move the plane that fast. And there were no windows, which I think was good for my mental health at that point because I couldn't see what was going on and like try to find clues. I just had to like trust in whatever was behind the wall. But I was too trusting because at the time we were supposed to start boarding, everyone got a text that the gate was moved. And of course, everyone panics. And everyone panics and everyone is like, we gotta go over there. It wasn't that far, but it was like everyone was just like running over to the next gate, and like seeing people that were on the flight running back the opposite direction or like going like in a different way. It was kind of like, no, everyone come here. We all get to the gate, we're all running, and this time there are windows. Everyone like freaked out and rushed over, and it was very like hurry up and wait because there was no plane, and we could all see there was no plane, and it just felt so like typical of the day and of what was happening, to be sent repeatedly to these like weird places where there was no one to attend us. Like everyone felt very abandoned. So there was some slight panic. It was okay. A plane did come. So as we were seeing things were getting going, even if they were slow, the mood started lifting. But people were still like skeptical. But everyone was definitely in like a better headspace. Um, a lot of angry incoming emails, but definitely people were super excited to get to board, even though we had to wait a bit for refueling and stuff like that. But the cabin crew, they were immediately passing out drinks. They were like, I know what kind of flight this is. So the alcohol was coming out like as soon as people sat down. Um, and we sat at the gate for a hot minute, but the entire time I'm so happy I'm not going to be in Atlanta. I was telling everyone, I'm leaving Atlanta. Finally, I don't have to be in the Atlanta airport. And by that point, everyone was like awake in their different time zones and like different areas and was catching up on my messages. Um, and I was getting like the validation, but also at that point, I was in such a better mood. So things were just looking up. So it was very affirming. And everything was just like back to that, like, oh, fresh, happy feeling. Um, the flight from Atlanta to Charlotte was less than 50 minutes. It was so hot in the plane. Everyone basically kept the shades down to try to keep it cool. After we got in the air, it did cool down a bit, but I was so sleepy. I just kept my shade down and I put my eye mask back on, and I was just like drifting, uh, not sleeping, but just like resting. My eyes were so heavy. I was so tired. And then when we were landing, it took a little bit of time. We all the gates were like full, so we had to. There was someone in our gate that we were supposed to pull up at. So the pilot had to find somewhere else to tuck us in. But by that point, everyone was just like, "We're in Charlotte, yay!" So it wasn't too much like low vibrations at that point. Everyone was just like, we're not in Atlanta. We All right, finally able to pull into a gate. Um, I have my reservation waiting for me. I like update everyone, grab some food, and I go out to like I was like, I'll find the Uber or something. But as I was walking, I was thinking, well, the hotel might have a shuttle. So I got to side to the area where the shuttles are, and I just called the hotel. And they were like, yeah, there's one every 30 minutes, which great for me because that means I didn't have to pay to get here, and I don't have to pay to get back to the airport. And that's just huge weight off my chest. And coming here, you know, one thing about chain hotels, they might not have the like uniqueness and the like quirkiness of a more boutique hotel, but they do have the amenities. The bathroom is amazing. There's a fridge in the room. Like basic hotel stuff, but I've never stayed in like a chain hotel like this. Like this place is for people coming from the airport. So if I needed like any toiletries, I would have to like Uber to get them or DoorDash them here. And I actually DoorDashed myself a bath bomb so I can take a nice relaxing bath. I'm so excited this place has a bathtub because whenever I am going into a hotel, I hope it has a bathtub. And I for my first vacation, I bought a bath bomb specifically to use at the hotel, and there was no bathtub. I was so happy to get to the hotel. This, the emotional roller coaster I've been on. Oh my God. I'm so grateful now that it's just over. I hope this never happens to me again, but I'm so happy to be here right now. And something that's kind of funny, or I should say something that's a synchronicity, is because I was on a group trip, I wanted to do group activities and like be around everyone because at the end of the week, we all have to leave to like different cities and stuff. And, we all got along really well and we all had a really great time together. So I wanted to spend like as much time as possible with everyone else. Sometimes to my detriment because I definitely know there are times when I should have been resting and sleeping instead of chitting and chatting. And I feel like that's probably why I'm sick now because I was like pushing myself to do like everything um, and go everywhere all the time. But it's okay. But the point is, because of that, I thought it's going to be really hard for me to have an artist date. I was planning on when I got back to Boston, booking a massage and having that be my artist date for the week. But I end my Artist Way week on Saturday. So I was pretty sad to be spending it in the airport. And I was looking around for like airport things to make into my artist date. I was kind of like, this Tibetan chanting can be my artist date while I journal and look around these weird little bars. That's okay, right? But now I'm here and I can like, I'm here and I'm alone. So I'm really excited about that. And what's funny is one of the tasks in week 4 at the end of the essay reads, an extended artist date. Plan a small vacation for yourself. One weekend day. Get ready to execute it. I feel like the universe put me in this hotel to have this extended artist date. And I'm kind of like, why did I go? I'm literally so grateful and happy to be here, but I because of the gauntlet of suffering, but I'm also like, was the gauntlet of suffering necessary for me to be grateful? Was it really? I'm a pretty optimistic and positive person. I I guess it was because I feel like this is a synchronicity and I'm supposed to be looking out for those. So I'm going to pass that one up to the universe. So I spent way more time telling this story than I thought I would, but that's okay. I will see you pretty soon because I still need to film my week 4 check in, and I honestly still need to write it in my journal. I'm probably going to do at least the writing tomorrow morning, and maybe you'll see me again in this hotel room, but no guarantees. I might be back in my car. But if I am, congratulate me because that means I made it back to Boston. All right, bye.